Hello, friend. Thank you for being here in a space created for souls who are searching for something deeper, truer, and more sacred than words can easily hold. Today, you're not just going to hear something about Aries, you're going to be illuminated by a calling, one you may have carried for a very long time, even if no one has ever put a name to it. Because some people aren't born to live quietly, they're born to awaken. And if your heart has ever felt like it doesn't quite belong in this world, if you've ever wondered why you were so strong, especially in the moments you felt most alone, then maybe, just maybe, you've been carrying a flame that was placed in you by God Himself. And right now, we begin the journey into the heart of that fire, starting with the very first reason why Aries was never meant to be tamed. They call it instinct, but really, it's a calling, a sound no one else can hear except Aries. Since childhood, there's always been something inside their chest that wouldn't sit still. A feeling that they had to go somewhere, do something, save something that was quietly falling apart in this world. No one taught them how to fight. No one told them to lead, but their soul already knew, because Aries was not made to stay still. They were never born to obey. They are the first spark, the first breath of action, a drum that sounds in the darkness, waking up souls that have been asleep in compromise for far too long. God didn't choose Aries because they were perfect. He chose them because they were real, because only a soul brave enough to burn can light up the darkest places. Only a heart bold enough to walk alone can lead others across the deserts of fear and doubt. Aries is the voice that breaks the silence, the hand that rises when no one else dares to object, the eyes that face the truth when everyone else looks away. They don't do it for applause, they do it because they don't know any other way to live. Maybe you were once that kid, the one who never sat still, or maybe you're that adult who always felt out of place in neat little boxes. A soul they called impulsive, too much, too intense. But maybe you've just been carrying the fire of the chosen. God doesn't hand out sacred missions to those afraid of change. He gives them to the ones who are willing to burn, to bleed, to be misunderstood as long as the light keeps spreading. Aries doesn't need to be understood right away. All they need is a quiet knowing that they weren't born to be like anyone else, that something very real is waiting to be awakened through their presence in this life. When they walk into a room, the energy shifts. When they speak, people stop to listen. And when they act, the world suddenly remembers. Maybe we've been asleep for far too long. Aries is the soul of beginnings. They weren't made to finish what others started. They were made to create from nothing, from chaos, from ashes, and the most beautiful part. They don't wait for the world to understand them before they act. They move, they trust, they lead. Have you ever felt like the odd one out? Ever wondered why you just can't pretend? Why fake things hurt you more than they should? Why your heart aches at injustice, even when no one else seems to notice? Maybe you're not broken, maybe you're just Aries, and maybe you weren't born to please the world, you were born to change it. God didn't make a mistake when He gave you the fire. He knew you wouldn't use it to destroy, but to light the path. For those who forgot how strong they really are, you can't be tamed, because your soul was never meant for a gilded cage of safety. You were born to fly, to fight, to awaken hearts that have been asleep in sorrow for far too long, and that's why your fire has never gone out. Even when life tried to smother it, even when people turned away, it still burns, quietly, steadily, faithfully, waiting for the moment to rise again. And if you've ever felt like you didn't belong in this world, listen closely, because this first reason just might be the mirror your soul has been waiting to see. Some people walk through pain in silence. Some climb entire mountains with no one ever noticing. And some souls were born to break through walls others don't even dare to approach. Aries is one of those souls. You won't see them complain. You'll rarely hear them talk about how much they've endured. But if you're quiet enough to look into their eyes, you'll see the cracks. Not the kind that signal collapse, but the kind that shimmer with light, like something that once broke and was rebuilt by hand. No applause, no witnesses. Aries doesn't chase comfort, they chase truth. And there is no easy road for the ones who go first. When you're the first to walk through a dark forest, you're the first to be scratched by thorns, bitten by insects, lost in paths that haven't been made yet. But you're also the first to clear the way. That is the destiny Aries agreed to long before this lifetime ever began. From a Buddhist lens, we each carry karmic burdens into this world. Some souls choose the path of peace, some choose the path of service, and some choose the path of obstacles, not to prove anything, but to help purify not only their own pain, but the pain of those who come after them. Aries is the one who carries that weight. They don't just walk through fire, they learn to live inside it without burning. I once spoke with a middle-aged woman, an Aries. She'd gone through a painful divorce, lost her job, had no home to return to. Some days she only had one meal, and she'd whisper to herself between bites, "Don't fall, don't give up." No one knew about the nights she cried alone in a cold car. No one saw her standing in front of the mirror, promising herself, "I won't let this life end in darkness." 10 years later, she became a teacher, a meditation guide, a writer helping women who had survived abuse tell their stories. No one could have guessed she had once touched the bottom. But one thing never changed, the fire in her eyes, still lit, still steady. I asked her, "What kept you going?" She smiled softly and said, "Because I knew I wasn't born to bow." And that is Aries. Not everyone understands them. Some say they're too hot-headed, too impulsive. But very few see the battles they fight inside, the ones they never speak of. Very few understand that their strength isn't a choice, it's their nature, it's destiny, it's what they must become if they want to survive without losing the light inside them. In this world, we celebrate success, but rarely ask, "What did you go through to get here?" We see the outcome. We don't see the blood and tears beneath the surface. That's why I will always admire those who carry Aries energy. They don't talk much. They act. They rise. They keep going again and again, as if falling was never an option. And if you're listening to this and you are an Aries, if you've ever gone through depression, been misunderstood, fallen down with no one reaching to catch you, but you're still here, still breathing, still trying to be better, then I want you to know you are not invisible. God sees you. The universe knows exactly what you've done, what you've survived, what you've carried, and the light in you. That is the gift you've protected, with all the loneliness in your heart. You don't need anyone to recognize you, because you are already living proof that the human will can create miracles. And if you are an Aries who ever stood back up, after the world turned its back on you, leave a comment. We're listening to your story, because maybe, just maybe, your story will be the light someone else needs to make it through their own dark night. Sometimes, what makes a person truly strong isn't muscle. It's a fire inside them, a fire that never goes out. There's a kind of anger that doesn't come from ego but from deep love. When Aries gets angry, it's not about winning, it's about something sacred inside them that simply can't stay silent. When truth is twisted, when the powerless are crushed, or when evil is celebrated. That anger isn't the fire of destruction. It's the light cracking through. It's the final drop after 100 times they try to hold it in. It's the voice that breaks free after too much silence just to keep the peace. In Buddhism, this is called wrathful compassion, a force that doesn't rise to harm but to protect truth. Like thunder out of a clear sky, it shakes awake what's been sleeping, in ignorance or apathy. Aries doesn't explode over petty things. They don't yell just because their pride was bruised. They get angry when what's right is ignored. When someone gets hurt and no one says a word, they don't speak often. But when they do, their words slice through the noise, not to wound, but to wake. You see, some people are the ones always holding the peace. In the room, in the family, in the relationship, they bend, they stay quiet. But don't forget, the one holding the harmony is also the one who, when they finally speak out, isn't just reacting. They are delivering a soul's warning. That's Aries. The one who holds the rhythm, keeps the order, preserves what's good. But don't mistake their calm for surrender, because inside them is a fire that watches everything. And when they step out of their silence, everything changes. I once met a man, a textbook Aries, gentle, soft-spoken, never raised his voice, until one day he witnessed his boss humiliate a female co-worker in front of the entire office. No one spoke up. Except him. He didn't yell. He just stood, looked the man straight in the eye, and said, "What are we allowing to exist here?" No one answered, but from that day on, everything shifted, not because he shouted, but because he dared to say what no one else would. And sometimes that's all it takes to wake up an entire room. That's Aries anger. Not everyone gets it, and so they get labeled as difficult, impulsive, hot-headed. But if you listen closely, beneath the roar, you'll hear the pain of a heart that doesn't want anyone else to suffer the way they did. Aries doesn't rage to release. They rage to protect, not to control others, but to restore justice. that's been stolen for far too long, and maybe that's the biggest lesson from Aries. Sometimes, the kindest people are the ones who have been misunderstood the most, because they don't speak to fit in. They don't nod just to keep their seat. They don't stay still when they know it's time to stand. And because of that, they often walk alone, but that loneliness is what makes their voice echo farther. They are the lighthouses. They don't need applause. They just need to be lit at the right moment to guide someone who's drowning in life's quiet storm. And strangely, after all the rage, the confrontations, the battles, Aries holds no grudge. They don't live anchored to anger because they know the end goal was never to win, to clarify what's right, to clarify what needs to change. And that's why they forgive quietly, as if it never even happened, not because they are weak, but because they are strong enough not to let darkness settle inside their heart, because behind that fire is a heart that forgives, far more than anyone would ever expect. There are some acts of forgiveness that are never spoken out loud, not because of fear, but because the one holding that forgiveness knows that the deepest kind doesn't need words, it needs release. Letting go, that's Aries. They don't go around telling the world who they've forgiven. They don't wait for an apology to open their heart, and they don't need anyone to applaud their mercy. They just light a quiet incense within and keep walking toward the light. Someone once asked me, is forgiveness a sign of weakness? I said, forgiveness is the highest form of inner strength, because you're learning how to let go of what once broke you, without letting your heart turn to stone. In Buddhist teaching, forgiveness isn't something you do for others, it's something you do for yourself. Not so they can sleep peacefully, but so you can be free. Because when you carry hatred, you're the one drinking poison, hoping someone else will fall. Aries doesn't live in resentment. They don't have time to carry the heavy luggage of the past. Their soul is meant to go far, very far, and to make that journey, they leave behind anything that no longer holds light. They may have been betrayed, used, misunderstood. They may have stayed silent while being blamed for something they didn't do. But instead of fighting back, Aries stands up quietly, wipes the tears into the wind, and keeps walking forward, as if nothing ever happened, not because they don't feel, but because they feel so deeply that they know no one deserves to chain their heart to a prison called hate. To Aries, forgiveness is a sacred act of the soul. It's choosing to be the healer instead of becoming the one who hurts back. Do you remember the last time someone hurt you? Do you remember how that pain soaked into your skin like fire? And did you choose silence not because you were weak, but because you knew? Sometimes silence is the most beautiful prayer for both sides. That's the path Aries chooses. It's not easy, it's not light, but it's true to who they are. I once saw an Aries man forgive the father who abandoned him his entire childhood. Not with a hug, not with a conversation, but by becoming a different kind of father. The kind his own child would never have to wait for, never have to wonder if they were loved, never feel left behind. That is how Aries forgives. They don't speak it, they live it. They rewrite history with their own hands and erase the residue of pain with the light they carry forward, because they understand one simple truth. The one who forgives is the one who gets free first. Maybe you once hurt an Aries and they didn't blame you, they just quietly stepped away. To protect their own peace, no drama, no justice demanded. They trust the universe has its own way, and you know what? Maybe the person you once hurt has gone silent not because they were weak, but because they were Aries. There's a strength in that silence, a compassion that doesn't need to be proven. And if you ever feel it, even for just a moment, you'll know. This is not an ordinary soul. This is someone chosen by God. They don't forgive to make you comfortable. They forgive so they don't stay trapped, and in that choice, they become protectors of light even if they are the ones who once got burned by fire. And because of that heart, they love in a way that makes the entire universe go quiet. Some people love to fill an emptiness. Some love because they are afraid of being alone. And then there are souls who love not from lack, but from the abundance of light within. That's Aries. They don't love to be loved back. They love like it's a sacred instinct, as if love is part of a mission God etched into their heart before they were born. They don't love halfway. They don't hold back. They don't hide. An Aries love is a flame, not the kind that burns wild and dies fast, but a holy fire, steady, sacred, intentional, and lasting. When they choose you, every touch, every glance, every whisper carries an invisible vow. They don't just see your face, they see your soul, the part of you you've never shown, The part you think no one could ever understand or reach, but somehow they do, and they touch it with a heart that's been broken, scarred, but never stopped believing in the sacred. To Aries, love isn't about possession, it's freedom with direction. They won't hold you down with chains. They hold you close with the honesty of their presence. No fancy words, just a hand that shows up right when you need it. Eyes that stay calm in the middle of your storm. A shoulder that's always there, even when you don't ask for it, from a Buddhist lens. The way Aries loves leans more toward compassion than attachment. They don't pull you in to keep you. They gently push you toward your own light, and then quietly walk behind, believing, if it's meant to be, you'll return. If not, I still bless your path. And if you've ever been loved by an Aries, you won't forget the feeling, not because they were perfect, but because they were real, so real. You didn't know how to handle that kind of raw, unfiltered presence. No mind games, no let me disappear to test your love. Just them, whole, clear, on fire. A woman once told me she had been loved by an Aries man. No fancy gifts, no long paragraphs on social media. But every time she was hurting, he showed up at her door before she even had the chance to call. And when they broke up, he didn't beg, he didn't plead. He just left her with one sentence: if you're better off without me, then thank you for letting me be loved. No one teaches Aries to love like that. That's just how their soul chooses to love. A love not meant to keep, but to give, not to demand, but to serve the light in the other. So if you've ever been loved by an Aries, tell someone what that felt like, because I believe that wasn't just love. That was a miracle, a gift, from a soul brave enough to still believe in goodness, even in a world full of wounds. And when that love gets betrayed, you'll see they don't break. They rise. There are some souls who don't just survive the dark, they learn how to shine from the very wounds that broke them. Aries is one of those souls. When others fall, they wait for someone to lift them. But Aries gets up on their own, even when their knees are bleeding, even when their heart is still shattered, even when all that lies ahead is a nameless road lost in fog. They don't let failure define them. They don't let a broken chapter turn them into a victim. They choose rebirth, and that rebirth doesn't come with noise. It's quiet, like a phoenix shedding ashes from its wings, rising into the sky, glowing bright, until no one remembers. This was once a creature burned to the edge of nothing.